People like to know about what's going on at Haines Hunter, and I get it.
The legendary brand of Haines Hunter and how it's evolving forward, so looking forward as well, tend to be something that people are interested in.
Yes, we're a legendary brand, and that's the past. We want to move forward, and we're a company that have been copied and still continue to be copied, and it's a sign of, we're doing something right.
Where is it coming from, this innovation?
Yeah, the innovation comes from many areas for us as a brand. We've got a brilliant engagement with our customers who use the product regularly.
So is it about thinking about it all the time, John, or you got to switch off sometimes? Is it about that sort of passion, that sort of focus? Built on legacy, driven by innovation, that's the Haines Hunter standard. I'm Pat Panetta. John Haber's here as well, Managing Director of Haines Hunter Boats, Australia's leading boating brand and company, setting the benchmark in Australian boat building for decades. And John is right here, and we're back, John, after the first episode.
How are you, Pat?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Yeah, we had a good reaction last time. We're back, and we want to be back on a regular basis too. This is the plan, to come back every couple of weeks and do some interviews, talk to people about, buying a boat, maybe some travel, some business tips as well.
The success that we had last time, and the feedback that I got, I can see that there's some good positive information that we can give not only existing customers but future customers. And also, what is exciting is people like to know about what's going on at Haines Hunter.
Yes.
And I get it. We can certainly share some of those forward planning experiences that we've got.
Well, that's exactly right. The plan for this time really just to talk to you about that, and then we can bring some guests in later, because the response last time, looking at the engagement, was all great. So thank you to everybody who did that. You got a lot of fans out there, and it was really great. Your marketing team were awesome as well, as far as pushing it out and making sure people got to see it. So the legendary brand of Haines Hunter and how it's evolving forward, so looking forward as well, tend to be something that people were interested in. So
yes, we're a legendary brand, and that's the past. We want to move forward, and we're a company that have been copied and still continue to be copied, and it's a sign of, we're doing something right.
Yes.
We're the most copied brand, I get it, and we're also a brand that other brands are passing off on.
Yes.
But we've moved certainly from that, because that's in the past, and it's a bit like, I suppose, Rolls-Royce and Bentley. If you look at those companies, they're certainly they've got legendary models, they've got a legacy, but they've also moved on to, innovation, improving their product, and really not resting on what they had in the past, but moving on to push the boundaries of designing and innovating new vehicles with new technology, new materials that can be used, which are better, stronger, but not resting on, the past so much. We're a brand that has moved forward, and I think we're also one of the most watched brands as well, which is flattering.
Well, that's right. When you're a leader, you are watched, and as you say, people try to sort of copy, and that puts the challenge to you. There's a line here: today's Haines Hunter is not defined by nostalgia, but by performance. So that really sums up what you're saying. So, it's all about performance, and it's all about the product in the end. So should we talk about the detail there? I've got here stability, efficiency, performance and handling. So the current Haines Hunter boats has all these elements.
Look, taking nothing away from the old Haines Hunter boats, they were brilliant, fantastic, for their time. But things have changed. Outboards have gone from primarily being 2 strokes to 4 strokes. They produce a lot more horsepower. Their horsepower curve is different. We look at electronics and the way electronics are now fitted to boats and different technologies. And we need to change to suit those new innovations. We've made our boats certainly a lot beamier to give them greater stability, but we've also looked at, these are our boats that we currently have, and how do we make them better? We don't want to just cut and shut or just extend the boat for the sake of saying this is a new model. We change the weights and balances, the materials that we use, and there's certain materials that we can talk about later on on what we've tried and tested, and we know probably before anyone, because when we try and test a product and we take the punt, we certainly know what the answer is going to be, whether it's, you know, better than what we currently have, or it's actually just the same, or not as good as what we have. And when you're an innovator and you're always trying and testing these products, certainly you'll make generally all the mistakes first, but it gives us first grab at the knowledge. You know, our R&D department is very focused on not just developing new models, but also looking at the types of materials, where to use them and how to use them. We're not focused on, you know, the hulls that were legendary back in the 70s. I mean, you just imagine a company like Rolls-Royce or Bentley still utilising their old chassis to, you know, produce a product. Yes, they were great and they performed well in their time, but they haven't rested on their laurels. They've improved in the things that I'm talking about, and that is, you know, making sure that the performance is now greater. The types of materials they use are also better quality, and we've got a lot of suppliers that supply raw materials that have also improved on their materials. So that improves the performance in the structurals, in the way the boat performs. We've learnt a lot about weights and balances and making sure that that's right. And funny enough, you know, we've made mistakes along the way. We've learnt from those mistakes. And ironically, some of the things that we've learnt from and we wouldn't go back and do, I'm seeing other brands,
right?
You know, going through that process. Yeah. Now, where I'm thinking, you know, we've been there and done that. We know not to go down that road again.
Yes. Where is it coming from, this innovation? You're being copied, so there's that sort of inspiration to keep going and keep evolving. So where is that coming from, John, as far as the business goes?
Yeah, the innovation comes from many areas for us as a brand. We've got a brilliant engagement with our customers who use the product regularly. Right. So customers is one thing. We've also got a fantastic relationship with a lot of our suppliers. You know, and I think I said before, you know, that relationship also extends to being good payers in the industry. So, you know, we have that ability to connect with the supplier who's got a new product that we could test and be the first to utilise it.
Yes.
So, you know, suppliers are another source of where innovation comes from. And then certainly, you know, the manufacturing team. You're well aware that I'm a big fan of manufacturing convenience and lean manufacturing practices.
Yes.
And those things in particular really help us develop and innovate a new product. And that's coming from the factory guys who are constantly working on these boats. And it could be something as simple as we can actually make this task a lot easier if this was designed different. And we can also take an hour or two out of rigging a boat because there's a good opportunity to run some different holes or cable passes, so the dealer can reduce their time in rigging a boat.
So it's about thinking about it all the time, John, or you got to switch off sometimes? It's about that sort of passion, that sort of focus? I'm
pretty passionate about boating in general, and you know, pushing the boundaries in our own product is the innovation as well. Yes, it's part of our legacy, but we have to constantly evolve and move forward. And I'm certainly not interested in, you know, resting on our laurels or resting on the brand name Haines Hunter. I'm more about improving a product, making it better. And, you know, you've got to be prepared that when you're bringing out new innovations, initially you'll get criticised because no one's tried and tested it like you have. And that's also part and parcel of, you know, being an innovator. Not everyone's going to accept it straight away. Yeah. And some people might have to eat a bit of humble pie along the way. But with that innovation push, and it's not only innovating new product, but it's also innovation of developing your own staff and working with your staff. And it's not a matter of just telling your staff what to do. It's the critical point is teaching your staff on how to become more innovative and having that mindset and that culture within your team. And I think that's the most important point, because that becomes not only developing and innovating new product, it's also developing and innovating your staff to become better at what they do.
Right. And how do you do that? They say empowering, giving them the confidence to take a punt and all that sort of stuff, or it's different with different people?
I think empowering and also giving them the confidence to come forward. And most people know, I think we've discussed this before, I've got an open door policy where anyone can come and discuss whatever they want at any time within our organisation. And for me, on a personal level, where I am very keen and passionate about developing new product, I think what drives me is seeing our staff grow from where they started and to where they are today. And I've actually had a positive influence on that growth. And that's a big driver.
Yeah, I've noticed that. You care about your people, or you like passing on your knowledge and bringing others along?
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, it certainly makes my job a lot easier when you've got, 15, 20 people or 30 people in your organisation that are all contributing to the same goal. And having that passion is exciting for me on a personal level, but also more importantly, it helps me with my day-to-day operation within the brand.
At Haines Hunter, a truly great boat is more than just a product, it's a legacy. There you go, John. Well, there you are. Yeah, it's more than just a product, it's a legacy, and we've spoken about this. You've got the great legacy with the Haines Hunter brand, but you're also looking forward and you're innovating as you go.
The day that I stop doing that is that's when my time's up, I think, Pat. But
true.
No, I certainly love it. I enjoy going to work, and I'm involved in quite a few different businesses. But Haines Hunter's, I don't see it as a job. It's a passion and something that I love doing. So
that's it. It's climbing the mountain every day. You get up to the top. Is there always a new peak?
There's always a new mountain to climb.
Yeah, true. Yeah. You're going to enjoy it along the way, though, don't you? Well, that's what you said, yeah.
Well, every business and every job has its ups and downs.
Yeah.
Again, it's a key feature to learn to push through.
Yes.
Not everything goes your way, but again, it's focusing on the solutions rather than the problems.
Yep. And you travel but you travelled for work. This is the reason we've had a bit of a gap between the couple of episodes. You've been away to Asia and different things. But that's more work, isn't it? It's more about, what you're doing, but also you've had can I mention your daughter got married as well? So you've had stuff happen, a lot of stuff happen in life too.
Yeah, that was definitely a monumental
that was awesome.
chapter in my life.
Yes. We've got Jack behind the scenes. I'll have to show him some of the photos. It was it looked wonderful. Okay, so let's talk about the actual now. Making these boats for our viewers. If you're going to buy a boat, what you need to know, these sorts of things as well, and some detail about what to choose. But really, Haines Hunter, your philosophy when constructing a boat, I've got here strength first, longevity always. That's interesting. That's a good one.
Yeah. Look, there's a bit of controversy in regards to, many people who probably haven't built boats as long as what we have, and have the experience that our team has, and they are also trying different innovations or different products to enhance their own. But one of the things that I've come across is people questioning, timber in boats and it rots, and but just as a casual discussion, what I've come to terms with is, yes, timber will rot in a marine environment over time, especially if not looked after. But in actual fact, I went to Europe, quite a few times, not too long ago, and you look at how many timber boats are sitting in the water there, and they're 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, and they're still good.
Right.
But and there's a lot of ships that are made out of steel, if not all of them are made out of steel, that travel and circumnavigate the world, but steel rusts.
Right.
And then you've got boats that are made out of aluminium, which also serve a purpose, but aluminium corrodes. You know, so my point there is, you know, there is a common denominator in all of this, and that is, if you don't look after something, everything has a use-by date on it or a life expectancy. And, you know, there's a controversial thing where, you know, a big selling point is, oh, we've got no timber in any of the boats. And we've actually built boats that are full composite, and we have boats that have got a combination of timber and composite. And there are reasons why we've done that, because we found that, you know, timber in boats, fully glassed, encapsulated, properly serves a purpose in the construction method. And what we do find is a boat that is made out of full composite is definitely lighter, but doesn't perform as good as a heavy built boat. But it also doesn't absorb sound like a fully glassed, encapsulated timber stringer set. The vibration and the noise that resonates through the hull as you're going through, we find that our construction method is much better, and we've tried and tested and proven this in our research and development department. You know, and also in some of our boats we do use composite in the transoms, but only on certain models that we feel it can do with it.
Right.
We are questioning some of the materials that are perceived to be better, but, you know, ultimately I find it really bizarre, and it's an interesting comment that I'm going to make here, that people will say, oh, you know, timber transom will rot out. It comes back to that single point that if you look after it and service your engine and your transom well by taking out the bolts, because that's generally where, you know, the timber transom will deteriorate. If you take out the bolts once a year, one by one, and re-sikaflex them in, well, that will actually prevent the penetration. It comes back to that point that ships are made out of steel, but steel rusts, but they're regularly maintained and painted so they can last 20, 30 years. And same with aluminium boats. If you clean them when you're finished and you don't leave other corrosive materials in the boat, they'll also last a long time. The same goes with, you know, a boat that's got timber in it. Many people on social media will comment about a rotting stringer or a rotted transom. They're generally on the products that are not looked after in every brand. However, most of the boats that we get in for refurbishment or let's call it maintenance in this area are 30 years old. And they might need to spend, you know, $3,800 or $4,200 putting a new transom in, or whatever it might be, depending on the boat. And I really had a good hard think about this. I thought, hold on a minute. In 25 years, what I do know is that the outboard is generally replaced twice, and so is the trailer, right? So if in 25 years you've upgraded your engine twice because of wear and tear or, you know, technology, whatever it might be, generally the upgrade is around $20,000 to $25,000 for a repower as an upgrade. So in 25 years you'll do that twice. That's $50,000. And you've had the outboard for 25 years, it doesn't matter, that's roughly about $1,000 a year, round figures, to get it serviced and maintained. So we're calling that $75,000 worth of expense on the outboard over 25 years, maintaining it and upgrading it.
Yes, yes.
My question is, how much have you spent on the boat, the hull? No one spends any money maintaining the hull, bar a bit of polish, you know, maybe washing it, you know. No one spends really any money. But let's say it was a couple of $1,000s in polish over 25 years. Yeah. Okay. And if you did spend, you know, maybe an hour taking each bolt out of the engine transom and making sure everything's resealed properly, that might cost you, you know, the best parts of a couple of $100 over 25 years in Sikaflex tubes. So I can't see the point where people might consider that a hull or the actual boat is a problem having timber in it that lasts 25 years, where they've spent zero on it, and they might have to spend $4,200 if they haven't maintained their boat on a transom, compared to the exercise of having an outboard that could cost you $75,000 worth of upgrades and maintenance over a 25-year period. But if it's not 75 grand, all right, we'll take one outboard out and it's only one upgrade, you're still spending 50K on the outboard. So I can't see why people make a big deal out of having timber in the boat. The reason why we choose to have a combination of different materials and composites, and in some instances timber in the boat, marine ply, is because we know that in certain parts of the boat it actually works better. And it also helps us with creating the weights and balances on a boat to get that extra performance that we're talking about, that you won't get out of composite material. And I understand a lot of people will disagree or try and debate the issue, but we've been there and done that as boat builders, and I can tell you that, I won't tell you the model, but we built a boat out of full composite compared to our traditional build, and you wouldn't even think that they were the same boat.
Right.
They didn't actually perform the same. One was more drummier, it felt lighter, it just didn't feel as solid, and it didn't absorb the sound like we wanted it to, and it didn't perform like a Haines Hunter should. So to finish up, if there are customers out there that are being told that, you know, we've got timber in the boats or they don't want it, we are very, very happy to build them a full composite boat. It's not an issue.
Right.
You know, but my experience tells me, and in my own boats, I would have the right materials in the right place that give us the best performance. But we do offer that option if people are convinced that it's that I'm not right.
Now, John, some people might say, well, don't try to reinvent the wheel. You're in there, you're innovating, you're always looking at your product. But people might say, well, it's there. Why try to reinvent something that is working? So what would your response to that be?
That's interesting, Pat. You've thrown me under the bus a little bit there. But
well, you know.
We're not here to reinvent the wheel. And some people might say, you know, if it's not broken, don't bother fixing it. And that's fair. But what we say is we can improve on it. You know, we're not trying to reinvent it, we're improving on it. And that's where our legendary boats were legendary in their time. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but we say, you know, if it's great, and it was great, let's improve on it and make it actually even better. That's where our philosophy is in all our new models of Haines Hunters. We've made them more stable, they're quieter in the ride, they function a lot better, they're much more user-friendly, they're finished well inside with all the nice things that people want. Yeah. And it's all the little 1%ers that, unfortunately for us as a company, we also need to improve on. Letting people know where those 1%ers are that make the product better. And it could be, you know, improving the dash space. It could be the fact that we've improved on the fatigue level of, you know, where the steering wheel is on a boat. Right. Not to have it too low. It needs to be in the right spot. It needs to be comfortable, so it's ergonomically right, because that reduces a lot of stress in an individual. And we've got a program, which I don't want to disclose, which measures fatigue in an individual on a boat that's, say, been fishing for 8 hours and running a boat for 8 hours, and the difference of having proper eyesight through a windscreen, or being able to look over the windscreen, or the seating position, it could be the steering wheel position, right, or the sounder position, can increase the fatigue if it's not done right.
Yes.
And these are the things that we have the ability to do at Haines Hunter, not for the sake of just putting a nice looking dash together. It functions well, yep, and it also reduces the fatigue, which is the benefit.
Well, I reckon that statement, you know, I have thrown that your way, but to say why reinvent the wheel and all that, that sounds a bit lazy to me. It's sort of like, well, let's just, you know, coast along, and that's not your personality.
Well, it's a bit. No, the wheel we know works, you know, but we can get a wheel to be better balanced and to turn quicker, and we can change the bearings on something and make it more efficient. We can make the wheel out of different types of materials to improve on it as well. Yeah. So it's not a matter of looking at trying to reinvent the entire wheel, because a boat's a boat, but we can certainly make improvements in many parts of the boat,
Yes.
And like I said before, you know, 4-stroke outboard technology changed. It took a lot of people a long time to warm to that. In fact, there was a lot of critics at the time about, you know, reinventing the outboard to 4-stroke technology, but everyone's now moved to 4-stroke, and 2-stroke is no longer, you know, really in existence. So again, we accept as a brand that as we are innovating new product, not everyone's going to warm to our boats initially, but the ones that do and the ones that experience that difference that we create end up with having, you know, the item first, and they tell all their mates. And again, you know, a lot of people have had to eat humble pie because they've been critics of our brand, and then realise that, hey, maybe this is a better product in not only in its performance and the way it looks, but the way it functions.
Yes.
And the usability. And also, again, the brand does carry one thing that you can't take away from it. It's the most researched brand in the country for a fiberglass trailable boat, and it also holds the highest resale value.
Ignoring your critics, John, have you always done that? You know, you've got this vision and off you went, and people, as you say, you get critics along the way and you just believe and move forward. Is that sort of something you've always done in your life, or do you learn that to ignore? Well, I mean, you don't ignore everybody, but some critics you just think, okay, I'll just keep moving forward.
I wouldn't say I'd ignore the critics totally. Some critics have got good points that, again, we can learn from and say, hey, look, you know, that's they're criticising the product, but I can understand where they're coming from, and we'll tackle that.
Right.
And then you've got some critics that'll get on and you know, try and hammer you because you might have innovated and they wish they were you.
Yes, of course. Yeah,
You
right.
know,
You need to know the difference. Yeah, nice.
You know, I take that as a positive.
Yeah. And you mentioned about technology and always innovating. You think of the world the way it is now. I mean, it's just amazing what we've done. There's AI, there's the internet, there's these things that we, you know, the mobile phone. So, you know, innovation and the world is this, you know, technology thing that keeps sort of rocketing by. Often they say things in movies that you saw all those years ago have now become a reality. So you must get inspiration from all sorts of stuff, movies and things, and think, I could do that.
Look, there are a number of companies out there that, you know, are so innovative. They push the boundaries, and in particular, if you look at, you know, a company like Bentley, for example, that, you know, invented a new front light in their car, and they got the innovation of putting like a crystal in their actual light section, and that came from a glass, you know, an old sort of glass that I think my mum had, you know, 30 years ago.
Right.
And they've turned it into something that is special in the vehicle.
Yeah.
And then you've got other companies that innovate things. Like you look at some of the smaller companies like Hyundai and how they're coming along.
Yeah.
You know, started from nothing, and I got to go to the Shanghai Motor Show not too long ago.
Right.
And you look at the innovation and technology coming into cars, and sure, they're all going to get criticised. Yeah, but that's the way the world is. You know, you can't please everybody.
You've mentioned Rolls-Royce and Bentley, and I know you've got a bit of a connection there and you admire those brands, but the Shanghai Motor Show, who's innovating the most around the world? I mean, it's a bit of an open-ended question, but China and Asia when it comes to motor vehicles, I guess we've got the US now, there's a whole changed environment there. So everyone's having a go?
Yeah, I think that's a question that opens up a can of worms.
Yeah, I know. We've got another 3 hours. Maybe not.
But I think China's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
They are certainly, their culture is different. There's a lot to learn from those people and the way that they've ran their, you know, not only their country, but how they've come, you know, what I saw in China 25 years ago to what it is today. We could criticise them all we want, but we should be looking at them as inspiration and credit to where they've got to. I mean, it's the place is a lot cleaner. It seems organised. The young generation have got a culture of wanting to work because, you know, their government really won't help them out, you know, as much as what ours would.
Yeah.
So there's an indirect management style that's got everyone off their backsides and into work.
Yep.
And look, they choose to run their countries the way they do.
Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of positives as well.
Yes. So yeah, we've got a few guests lined up, don't we? We've got a few exciting things in the pipe. I'm going to have to talk to you and your team. What do you reckon? A few special guests, and we just help people when purchasing boats and the boating lifestyle too, going fishing, where to go, all that sort of stuff.
I think this opens up, a new territory for us to have a chat, and certainly with the feedback, positive feedback, I must say, that I got after the podcast, which I wasn't real comfortable doing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I remember. You went to the boat show, and a few people come up to you and as well, and had seen the video.
I think it raised a lot of questions, and that's why we'll try and tackle a lot of those questions that people might have and ask. And
we should get the questions. Yeah, the engagement. If you want to leave a question, we'll pick up those questions and answer those questions. Yeah,
sure.
Good idea.
And we'll have that connection with our audience.
Yep. John Haber, Managing Director of Haines Hunter, thanks for being here in our studios. Well done, mate.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.